Hey you, and welcome to my channel. I'm 𝘠𝑦𝘮𝑚𝑥. Now, on January 31st, a little girl finished 4 months of treatment. She celebrated with her mother, she celebrated with the medical staff, and her mother, grateful with a smile, was eager to return home. So they boarded their med-evac flight, and in 40 seconds, all 6 passengers on the flight were dead. 2 days before that, on January 29th, an airline was flying everyone back home to Washington, D.C. when it collided mid-air with a helicopter over the Potomac River in Washington, D.C. All 67 people on board were dead. Now, these 2 crashes literally happened 2 days apart, 3 days apart, and they are amongst the most deadliest crashes, the most unexpected crashes that have just recently happened. And as I've told you guys, we have had a few, way too many airline issues, airline crashes, airline tragedies, just anything to do with flight going on in these past few weeks, even after these 2 flights. A flight going from Houston to New York, literally they caught it in time. Very fortunate it all happened on the ground, but the engine exploded. Now, for right now, we're going to get into these 2 specific plane crashes because they do have investigations going on. They do have very, very recent information. I am going to start with the latest plane crash, which is January 31st, 2021, and this one literally is just so sad. As I mentioned, it was a little girl, and the information on her mother is not given out. They are from Mexico, but this little girl, 4 months prior, she was flown in from Mexico, and she was flown in with her mother to the Shriners Hospital for Children in Philadelphia. Now, they are from Ensenada, Baja California. She was literally receiving life-saving treatment for a condition that they could not easily treat in Mexico. They received donations to be able to go, and they were flown over on a medical transport company jet rescue air ambulance. The plane itself is a Learjet 55. It was operated by what is referred to as a seasoned 4-man crew. After completing her treatment, the day before her departure, so on the 30th of January, the staff threw her a party to celebrate because, as I said, this was a life-saving treatment. She wouldn't have made it without it. Now, the following day, January 31st, around 6 o'clock EST, they all boarded their flight, hopeful for the future and ready to return home. And by 6:06 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, just 40 seconds after takeoff, they climbed 1,650 feet and were less than 3 miles away from the runway when they disappeared off radars. And I'm just going to show you this doorbell footage, which is very extreme. It's a lot. It's a lot. But this is what was caught on a Ring camera.
Yeah, man, she's
Yeah. So they were falling at a rate of 11,000 feet per minute. That's around 200 kilometers per hour. And they crashed not too far from Roosevelt Mall, which was shocking to me because I've gone to Roosevelt Mall. I've shopped at Roosevelt Mall. It's a highly congested area. The highways are all kind of close by. Everybody's going to shop. But they climbed roughly 1,650 feet, but they were falling 11,000 feet. So they were falling much faster than they even got up. Now, I just want to show you guys this. This is how they crashed. So you see, they started up here at the airport. Just gonna show this. They did not even get very far. They did not even get very far before they crashed right there, right near Roosevelt Mall. And the crash, as I said, it took the lives of the little girl, her mother, and the 4 medevac employees, as well as the life of an unassuming person that was literally just sitting in their car, minding their own business, going on with their day. That person is also unalived. 19 other people around the site of the crash were injured with varying levels of burn injuries, and then there were several homes and businesses severely damaged. I do believe it actually did hit a home. They have put out a word of caution that casualties may grow as the debris gets taken care of. And I'm just going to show you guys, because the crash, the site of the crash, everything is roughly 4 to 6 blocks. There are 4 to 6 Pennsylvania blocks, and it's still currently being investigated, with people wondering if, what caused the crash. Because literally it's less than 3 miles. They barely even got up in the air before they just dropped. Was it a complete malfunction of the plane? Was it the staff? To be honest with you, I don't know if because the information on the people involved in this is not put out. We don't know how well trained the staff were. We don't know if they're the same staff that flew in the country with this family and flew out. We're not sure. So people are wondering, hey, is the experience of the crew, and remember this, the experience of the crew, this is going to be brought up in the next crash that we're going to talk about, is brought up. And then also, as with the previous crashes that have already happened this year, as well as end of the year last year, people are wondering, hey, is it the maintenance of the Learjet? And, as of Sunday, February 1st, just a few days ago, they have recovered the voice recorder, the black box that's usually in a lot of planes, recording the voices, recording the flight pattern, flight awareness, taking all of that. They were able to get that on Sunday, February 1st. So hopefully they can understand why this happened in the first place, what happened literally just 40 seconds into flying. These are some videos that they have out here. So, yeah. Here's another view.
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! What the hell? What the hell?
And then here's one more video.
Lord. Admit the house.
This is some I'm pausing this. Hold on. This is some eyewitnesses.
Lord. Admit the house. When it nipped the house, it hit a couple cars. Boom! And to the plaza, and to the Dunkin' Donuts, everywhere. I've never seen nothing like that a day in my life. Once I seen the big ball of fire, I came outside. I walked straight down there, started seeing a bunch of plane pieces, and it was honestly like a human foot or something. It was in a shoe still, just on the side of the street.
So yeah, that is everything with this flight. As I said, they are still trying to investigate, still trying to find out why it crashed, because according to them, um, especially because it's a med evac flight, there are literally the air ambulance. They're supposed to be under um, certain regulations to ensure that everything's okay, especially because they're dealing with um, people that need the help and people they're trying to save lives and things like that. And the sad part is, as I said, this little girl flew out here to get life-saving medical treatment. She spent 4 months with staff. Oh, this is sad. She spent 4 months with staff trying to just trying to heal, to get better, and she completed her treatment. She completed it. And she was just probably ready to continue on with her life, live her life. Her mom was probably just very grateful to even have the opportunity to get this life-saving treatment, and literally the day after she completes, she's gone. So my condolences definitely to everybody that passed, and just letting everybody know, once again, this site is still under investigation. They are still cleaning up the debris. They do not know how many people was in that area when it crashed. There, as of right now, there is only one confirmed person unalive. They were literally sitting in their car. But as the debris gets picked up, gets cleaned, they will, of course, find more and more and more, and be able to tell, how many casualties there are. Sorry about that. But after that, guys, the crash that happened right before that, literally 2 days before that, it officially holds record as, first off, the first mid-air collision to happen in the United States involving a jet airliner since 1986, so almost 40 years ago. And also, I believe it is one of the deadliest airline crashes, because all 67 people involved in the crash have officially been confirmed to pass. Now this one is, I'm just going to show you, it involves two very, very major companies that are known internationally. We have American Airlines, which barely has anything on their page, but yeah, American Airlines, and then we have the U.S. Army. Yes, that U.S. Army. Now, what happened with this was on January 29, 2025, PSA Airlines flight number 5342 collided mid-air with a U.S. Army helicopter over the Potomac River in Washington, D.C., unaliving all 67 people on board. I believe 60 of them are passengers on the plane. 4 were crew for the plane, and then 3 were from the helicopter. Now, just some little background information, because there is a lot more on this case in particular. PSA Airlines initially was, I think, Pacific Southwest or something Airlines, and now they've combined with American Airlines. So the flight itself was operated under American Airlines, even though it's listed as PSA Airlines. It is a Bombardier CRJ-700 airliner, and I'll just show you what that looks like. Hold on. Let me see if I can pull it up. So this is a plane, pretty much a standard plane that's used to fly short or medium haul flights. Almost everybody that has traveled from one place to another place within the U.S. most likely has taken one of these planes. This plane itself that was involved in the accident, it was only 20 years old. So it's not the oldest plane in the book. And I will say this, they did modify it for it to have slightly higher seating capacity and an extended flight range. Personally, for me, I don't like how much seats are on a plane. I feel like there's certain places where you can't even move out, and then there's certain people that are constantly pushing their seat all the way back. It's just, overall, I think we could use one less row, give everybody a little bit more space. But yeah, this specific aircraft, right? It's only been in one incident prior, and that was in 2017 when it hit a deer off of a runway during takeoff. But it was fixed, it was maintained. Other than that, there's no reported problems. There hasn't even been a reported problem when it was flying out from Wichita, Kansas. That's actually where this plane was coming from Wichita, Kansas, all the way to Washington, D.C. Now, the U.S. Army's helicopter, I'm just going to pull up their helicopter right here as well. It is this, right? It's a Black Hawk. We all know or heard of the term Black Hawk. That's pretty much like those guys know what they're doing, right? They're like level A+ of the Army. But it says Sikorsky UH-6 Black Hawk helicopter. This helicopter in particular was configured for use as an executive transportation. So pretty much anybody that's a senior U.S. official, anybody that's important, they would use it for transport. Now, it was flying apparently under the call sign PAT-25, which indicates priority air transport, meaning I guess they have the right of way, or people know like, hey, they need to move fast, they need to move quickly. And this is why I told you guys to remember that people are saying, hey, is it the experience? This particular helicopter was on a training flight out of Davison Army Airfield when the collision occurred. That means the pilot was training. Now, when it comes to that flight, as I told you guys before, there were about 64 passengers on the airliner. 60 were actual passengers, 4 were crew members. Majority of the crew, or at least a good quarter of the crew, had some association with figure skating, particularly with U.S. figure skating as well as Russian. So, for instance, we have a whole bunch of people with their parents returning from the National Development Camp that was held in Wichita, Kansas, and it was in conjunction with the 2025 U.S. Figure Skating Championships. There were coaches from Russia. There was a 3-time figure skating champion as well as coach. There was also a Chilean skater and his father. Outside of that, there were 3 students, 6 parents from the school in Fairfax, Virginia. There were 2 lawyers on board, a civil rights attorney, a Filipino policeman, the president-elect of the National Association of Biology Teachers was there. There were also 2 Chinese people, a Pakistani person, Polish Americans, German nationals, as well as a Danish citizen. And then on the Black Hawk helicopter, which I have here, there was the pilot, which was Rebecca Loebach. She was 28 years old, and by this time, she was undergoing her annual night evaluation flight. So pretty much being evaluated that she is okay to fly at night in the helicopter. And by the time she crashed, she had accumulated around 450 hours. The total you need in order to fly a commercial jet like the one that she crashed into is a minimum of 1,500 hours. So she had not even come close to halfway in her training. The other person there was the evaluator for the pilot. This person was, I don't know if you, I did a flight lesson, and I had technically control of the plane, but the pilot who was next to me, he also had control. So what it was if I was leaning too much, he could fix it. And that's something that's kind of going through my head now, is the way the controls are set up is it's not crazy difficult for your co-pilot to kind of take over. Or at least I would hope it's not crazy difficult to switch between pilot and co-pilot, because they do switch mid-air. So that way, for instance, on a long-haul flight, somebody can go to the bathroom or not, you know? And then after that was the crew chief, so the staff sergeant, was 29. Honestly, when it comes to the crew, the captain, the staff sergeant, they were both around 28, 29, and then the evaluator was around 39. And then for the plane crew, the captain was 34, the first officer was 28, and then there were two other flight crew, but they haven't been mentioned by name, so their ages. Roughly everyone flying this plane, having to do with this plane, seems pretty young. When it comes to the jetliner, though, both the captain and the first officer have been there for at least 2 years, with the captain being there with the company flying for 6 years. So what happened? Now, the flight 5342 was en route from Wichita Dwight D. Eisenhower National Airport in Wichita, Kansas, and it was on its final approach to Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport in Washington, D.C. It was ready to land. It was doing a pickup and drop off, and that was it. Now, the U.S. Army helicopter, as I mentioned before, they were performing an annual evaluation to test the pilot's knowledge and proficiency in the cockpit at night, and they were coming out of pretty much Virginia. I do want to say this, guys, because it's very, very important to know. The airspace around Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C. is considered to be one of the most difficult and dangerous areas to fly in America. Because, let me see if I can pull up the... Let me see if I could pull up the... have to have had it here. Okay, yeah, there we go. So this is it, right? So this right here is the river, and on both sides of the river, there's government buildings, so nobody's really allowed to fly over it. We all understand why. Spies, or terrorist attacks. But definitely congested. Definitely a lot of planes flying through, limited place to fly through. Think of it as if you have a highway with like two very popular cities on one side, very popular entryways, all these things, and all these all these cars have to file into one lane, instead of like a 3 or 4 lane highway. It is going to be congested. It is going to be difficult. Coming in, especially if you're coming in fast, you're going to crash, or all these other things. The other thing to note, right, is that efforts, were made by one air traffic controller to help with everything, and they were not supposed to have only one at that time period, because it was during a busy time period, and we'll actually get into why there was only one air traffic controller. They are still investigating, but they have said that the collision likely occurred at 325 feet plus or minus 25 feet. So roughly anywhere between 300 to 350 feet in the air. The problem with this is Reagan National requires helicopters on that route that they were on to stay below 200 feet. So this helicopter in and of itself is not passing the test. It's not. If they're doing an evaluation, they're not passing the evaluation because they are at a bare minimum 100 to 150 above where they are supposed to be in that airspace. Now, as I said, a single air traffic controller was pretty much managing both aircrafts at the time of the crash and also the helicopters that were en route at the time of the crash. This arrangement is not normal. This is not okay, particularly for that time of day. So between 10 a.m. and 9:30 p.m., that's their busy schedule. That's the time where they are supposed to have two controllers. One is supposed to be taking care of the planes. The other is supposed to be taking care of the helicopters. Between 10 and 9:30 10 a.m. and 9:30 p.m. After that 9:30 p.m., so starting 9:31 p.m., that's when those jobs can be combined and be handled by one person because it is not as busy. Now, where am I? Now, as I said, that time of the crash was actually before 9:30 p.m. And the reason for that is because the air controller supervisor combined the duties before the cutoff time to allow one air traffic controller to leave early. We do not know if it was emergency and that's why they had to go. We do not know what happened. Now, me personally, I was always taught the higher you level up at a job, that means the more capable you should be. So, for instance, if you are working retail and you're a supervisor, that means you need to be able to do the position under you if you need to fill it in. Okay, you get promoted to a manager, then you need to be able to not only do manager work, but if push comes to shove, you need to be able to do supervisor work. You need to also be able to do retail associate work. That's how I was taught. And I think if air traffic controller supervisor knew that one person was leaving, they should definitely be following up more on that one air traffic controller, and if there's any way they can, or if they see that they're overwhelmed, assist them out until the cool down time. That's me. That's my opinion. But yeah, that one controller warned the helicopter twice about the approaching American Airlines jet. The first alert was issued 2 minutes before the collision. They had 2 whole minutes to either not continue moving forward, stay still until the plane passes, or to turn, change direction, get out the way. 2 minutes, right? That's enough time, especially when you're flying at very fast speeds, to get out the way. And I will say, because it's a U.S. Army Black Hawk and U.S. Army associate type of everything going on, there is conspiracy theories that, you know, is there somebody on board that they had to unalive and this was just a covert operation? We don't know. We have no idea. But I will say, when the helicopter did collide with the airline jet, the helicopter exploded, both crashed into the river. Now, the airliner's airspeed was around 128 miles per hour, and it was about 2,500 feet away from the runway where it was cleared to land. That plane was cleared to land. That helicopter was warned twice to get out of the way. And as I said, guys, this is literally the flight path. So if you look at this, that top line, that's right, that's right here. That top line, that red line right there, that's the helicopter. And if you see that yellow spot down there, that's where the collision happened. And you'll see a blue line coming out from it on the bottom. That's the line the airline was taking. So you see the plane had The plane was going. The plane knew what it was supposed to do. The helicopter was supposed to get out the way. So I'm going to share with you guys the partial air traffic control audio that I was able to get. So.
Associate 5342, Washington Tower, 1 star, 32, direct 17, cut 25. You take runway 33?
Yeah, we can do 33 for Blue 6342.
Associate 5342, that's a Wilson Bridge, thanks for runway 33, clear to land. Pass 25, get the CRJ in flight. Pass 25, pass line is CRJ. Oh, did you see that?
Yep, we saw it. And everybody just hold your positions, please, on the field right now. Fire command. The accident happened in the river. Both the helicopter and the plane crashed in the river. It's east of the approach end of runway 33. All runways are closed. Nobody's landing. No one's moving at all. It was probably out in the middle of the river. I just saw a fireball and then it was just gone. So I haven't seen anything since they hit the river, but it was a CRJ and a helicopter that hit. I would say maybe a half mile off the approach end of 33.
Yeah. So that is the full log of the air traffic controller. You could hear him say, like, kind of warning or saying, like, hey, I warned them, all these things, and then they're discussing the crash itself. Now, I want to show you guys the footage that they have of this. It was school camera, and it was caught also from cars. So
new footage showing the fatal DC crash. On the left, the Black Hawk military helicopter. On the right, the passenger jet. After the collision, both the helicopter and plane enter the water within 5 seconds.
okay, and then here's another view of this.
What happened?
Oh my God!
Actually, it's possible. Okay, yeah. I was just checking to make sure they were both at night, but from the look of this video that was put on CNN, one, they have a bit more light, and it looks like they also lighten the exposure on it, or increase exposure, so that way we could see it better. But according to witnesses and people who have seen it, they said, you know, it showed a brief trail of fire. The airliner was in like a left-hand spiral into the water. So I don't know if you've seen, like, for instance, eagles like to do this, where they drop, as they're falling down, they start spinning in one direction. That's pretty much what they said the plane, the air jet was doing. Some people have stated that it's missing most of its left wing. The other people were stating that it was missing all of its left wing. Witnesses even stated that the airliner split in half upon impact of the water, while the helicopter itself crashed upside down, right near the airliner. I do want to put out here that I don't want anybody to put all the blame onto the air traffic control team or anybody like that, because efforts were made to reduce congestion in the airspace, but Congress approved more flights to and from Reagan Airport in 2024. And for a while now, the tower at Reagan Airport has been understaffed for years. So pretty much in that situation, we have a whole bunch of people doing what they can to decrease the congestion, and then we have Congress going, oh, you guys decreased in congestion, which means we can increase getting more stuff here so we can make more money. That's just me. I don't know. That's what I think. But yeah, not helpful at all, because understaffed, more flights. Now, in the aftermath of this collision, right, within 3 hours of the collision, authorities began confirming fatalities. As of the following morning at around 2:50 a.m., so January 30th, no survivors had been reported. by the afternoon, all 67 people on board both the plane and the helicopter were all presumed dead. Now, after the collision, all takeoffs and landings were diverted to nearby airports. The airport remained closed until 11 a.m. January 30th, so just until the following day. I assume, like, probably after they got most of the debris out or confirmed that everybody had passed. On January 31st, the FAA restricted helicopter flights near the airport. 2 routes were closed, one of which the Black Hawk helicopter was on. I do think, though, that I do feel like that helicopter, whoever was the co-pilot, the guy who was the evaluator, the moment he heard that first notification at 2 minutes, like, hey, be warned, there's a jet approaching, he should have put his hand on the wheel, on his side. As I said, like, the way those co-pilot controllers work is that they both move. Even if one person's not using it, they both move. So he could have, I personally feel like he could have taken over. He could have done something. He could have put some warning out or something like that. But also, I do feel like if they are doing night flights, they should also, especially for tests and evaluation, they should also be aware of what flights are possibly coming around or anticipated to come around, so they could just be more aware of it. PSA Airlines, because of this, they did retire the flight number. I don't even know what that means. Well, I do know what that means. They're not going to use that flight number for going from Wichita to Washington anymore. They're instead going to change it to flight 5677. So if you had a flight number 5342, I guess they consider it bad luck now. So they changed it to 5677, but that's still the same flight going from Wichita, Kansas to Washington, D.C. Investigations are open for the collision. There's a few investigations going on. I believe the U.S. Army is also doing their own investigation as well. And they did find the airline flight recorder, the black box that was recovered from the wreck. And they also, the following day on January 31st, they found the voice and flight data recorder from the helicopter. Now, this is something you guys gotta listen into. The flight recorder, right? The flight recorder showed that the airline jet made a change in its pitch about 1 second prior to impact, suggesting that there was an evasive maneuver done by the airline. There is nothing showing that there was any type of try to get out the way by the Black Hawk jet, by the U.S. Army's helicopter. So yeah, that everything is still going into, everything is still being discussed, it's being investigated for both flights. These things are going on. I do want to say to everybody, there's been a lot of people coming out saying like, hey, something was telling me don't get on a flight. The chances of being unalived on a plane is very small. I do know it's slightly increased since all of these accidents. But I'll say this, my condolences to every single person that has suffered in some way from these plane crashes, whether you were on one of these planes that crashed and not these recent ones, because but any other previous plane crashes and you got injured, or someone you know has passed, or a relative or a friend or whatever. Right now, I think the most important thing for us as a people, whether national, international, city, whatever, to be a lot more vigilant with our safety and the safety of the people around us. I think after the crashes, especially around earlier in this year, December crashes, you know, I remember seeing a video of someone saying on TikTok, they were like, my flight got delayed because the pilot said that the plane wasn't up to standard and he did not want to fly it. And everybody on the plane, yeah, we were a little bit upset and frustrated, but with everything that was going on, we were just thankful that he did that, because you never know. And I think that's what we all need to be, because truthfully, I do think part of the reason we are having so many crashes has to do with COVID. In particular, the fact that so many pilots lost their jobs because they did not want to take the COVID vaccine. And airlines were willing to hire just about anybody. Does not matter how much experience that person has. If they were able to fly a plane, they would get them on board. You get hired much, much easier. And I know even with airlines in general, like working in the airlines or everything, that was the same thing. They wanted more flight attendants because they were losing people, because people, they lost so much money during the whole COVID situation. So all these things going on, I do think it is a combination of not as experienced people, both in the air traffic control, in the airport. And I think it's also a combination of not caring about the safety of the people around you, or even of yourself. So many of us, we go into the airlines, we don't even bother to look at the outside of the plane that's coming in. There's windows there you could see, but most of us just sit, want to get on the plane, want to get off. And I can't even deny, like, sometimes I am like that. Sometimes though, I do try to look on the outside of the plane, because you could usually see, for instance, like if something's hanging off or something like that. And it is scary. It is scary. Especially, best example is the Houston to New York flight that literally happened after these two flights, where they were, I believe, on the tarmac. They were either just about to take off or just landed, and the engine exploded. So a lot of these planes need proper updating systems. They can't go through any shortcuts or anything like that, because you are dealing with so many people's lives. So many people's lives. Oh, so many. But as I said, my condolences go out to the families. I'm personally worried about flights, because my mom went to go see my grandma before she passed, and she still has a flight coming back. So definitely up here with the worry and concern. But yeah, my condolences go out to the family and the loved ones of those that did pass, as well as those that did pass. And I do think we should all be a bit more vigilant with our planes. There's no reason someone should drop you off at an airport, and you know, I've seen videos of this, stay like 30 minutes just hoping that you get there, just hoping that you land safely. So yeah, that's it for everything, guys. Please be safe, please be vigilant. And it's better all of us are alive and well than none of us at all. So bye.